Okay, thank you, Zach, and thank you all for coming tonight, and especially thank you for coming and give us a great show. First of all, I would need to tell you who is with us. It's Silvia Dal Dosso, Dane Sutherland, Dismal Swamp, and Malpractice, Maricek, and Chiara. So I would like to ask you just to say maybe a sentence or two who you are. Maybe that we start like that. Instead of I'm reading your bio. Please.
Hi. I'm Silvia, I'm Italian. I'm based in Berlin. In 2017, I co-founded a collective called Cluster Duck. We are still alive, let's say. We created maybe like a new kind, which is actually a very old kind of analysis by collecting images, archives, studying the web. So our practice is mainly involving internet subcultures, and maybe the videos you were seeing yesterday are a trilogy made in this case by me, but that somehow can well exemplify the way we operate. Sorry, long presentation.
A good one. Hi, my name's Dane. I make work under the name Dismal Swamp, which tends to name more of a kind of collective effort in the works that I assemble through research and playing around with a lot of other artists and friends and collaborators as well to make quite dense and rabbit hole-esque kind of video works or installations. And likewise, the video that's being shown here is part of a trilogy, an hour-long kind of trilogy of episodes that makes a kind of one long film, I suppose.
Thank you. Thanks. Hi, I'm Marcin. I'm here as an agent of Malpractice, which is the two of us. Our work is built on friction of humans and AI systems, agents, and our work involves often just clashing different perspectives together. We do installations with agents, engines, which is a name we use for these like mental devices we build for ourselves and others. I don't want to say everything.
I'm Chiara. I guess I was literally just reflecting on that. Our work is always connected to a certain portal of reality, and like in the installation here, it is working in front of you. Like while you're looking at it, it is alive in a sense where you like it is working in the background. Like it's not static. It's always kind of like happening still while you're looking at it.
Burning credits.
Yeah, but burning tokens. Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you. I would like to start this conversation. I mean, it's a just conversation, and from something that you had yesterday in performance, something that about kind of positioning yourself with working with AI, about AI, and kind of in the same time criticizing AI in trying to find some kind of critical perspective. And that kind of reminds me on a song by Scottish artist Momus, who has a song, I was a Maoist intellectual in the entertainment industry. And kind of at the end of the song, he said, if I will start my life again, that is the last place where I want to be. I want to ask you, all of you, about your position, how you see yourself in relation to AI, working with AI, about AI. So who want to start?
Okay, thank you for so well describing our situation. But I think this situation is not just us. I mean, this is my opinion, but is maybe all of us living, especially like in Europe or US, we find ourselves acting habits that we know it will kind of ruin our life, but at the same time we feel that we don't have choices about it. There was a question yesterday, actually, about the end of your performance, which was summing up mainly it. Like, I know that the I don't remember it well, but...
I use AI even though blank.
Even though, exactly. So I think this is, but just to finish up, we were lately talking about, actually with Daniela, about the fact that students, so people younger than us, have a completely different position about the critique of technology. Somehow, I mean, this happened to me. They don't understand why we talk about technology even though we are criticizing it, while talking about me, my practice, or clustered practice. We come from a tradition which is near maybe to net art, in which artists are maybe the first that can comment, because we are quicker maybe than academia, that can comment what are the consequences of the massive use of technology for, the social or cultural aspects of society. So what we are doing, I agree with it, of course, and I would do that again. What we really need to do more is understanding what is the position of the new generations. Like, maybe we should, boycott more. This is something actually I'm asking to you as well, because I was actually asking myself too much these questions. Like, are they right? Or maybe they are not just understanding the dynamic that you have to talk about the evil technologies and understand it.
It feels like we should come to the defense of our generation. For us, I guess it's important to see the issue from different perspectives and different angles, because the structure of our performance was going for these different decks, which each embody a different perspective on AI, and like our, I guess, personal and shared view is that one perspective is never enough. So it's never enough to talk just about the evil of the technologies, or just about how they're how they're based on theft, or how they're based on extraction, because then we're missing something substantial about the possibilities related to them. And I think we all reflect on on that a lot. I think our generation, maybe sometimes we're tired and resigned, but yeah.
Yeah, I think our generation is kind of like very, very much, they like to take positions and like have them, like defend them statically, like you either place yourself here or there, and then there's kind of like no real discussion happening, which is, I guess, why for us it's really important to represent all of these different perspectives, even though they clash with each other. Like, it seems as if, representing all of them is kind of like there's an incompatibility between them, but that is very much like the productive, generative aspect of it. And regardless of everything else, a friend of mine told me about like their grandpa, who's like very tech savvy, and it's like an anecdote I keep like thinking about. because he was like, I'm old and I'm sick, but AI is so interesting, and I really want to stay alive because of that, because I really want to know where it goes. And like some days when I'm really like thinking pessimistically about it, I keep coming back to this quote because I'm like, yeah, thank fucking God, I hopefully still have like enough time to be alive and see where this keeps going and kind of like contributing to this conversation. So yeah, I feel like, yeah, there's within the pessimism of it and within the negative aspects of it, there's like so much ahead and like so much we can do that, yeah, I don't really feel like, having a very stable position and like judging it in a kind of strict way.
I think a lot of what's been said already is like, if I'm not misinterpreting what you guys have said, I really resonate with the kind of criticality that you guys embody in your work and in your practices and approaches, but also how entangled and kind of embedded we are in living with these kind of systems and how they start to embody us in those systems as well. But also the introduction of multiple perspectives as well. That resonates really well with what I try to do in writing and developing a project, which includes some voices which I have less control over, but those that I do have more control over are the kind of characters that I write for in the script. And in doing so, I kind of really have to inhabit like a multiple different perspectives. Some of those I find to be quite obnoxious perspectives, which I think is what motivates some of my pessimism when it comes to AI systems. And it's not necessarily, when I say an AI system, I try to take a quite expanded view of what that means. I don't think it necessarily just means a technical substrate or a material substrate like data centers or things, but also maybe a human substrate, which includes hype beasts, reality entrepreneurs, people who kind of generate a context around AI for understanding it, which perhaps exonerates things like slop or, I don't know, justifies these things. And other perspectives as well, which I've tried to inhabit as well, and which needed a kind of radical honesty in a sense to kind of to give voice to these perspectives. And I think what I'm talking about is my own kind of experience as someone who's kind of stuck and embedded in, as Zach was saying, whether you know it or not, or whether you want to or not, you are kind of contributing to the kind of acceleration or development or learning of these systems. And among that, I think, is not just my habits or my activities, but also like my feelings. And I think a lot of those feelings, again, this is one of the things I wanted to do with this project was to maybe review or map to some extent what you could call a mediascape, or more specifically a neural mediascape. So how that is maybe quite a opaque terrain. And yeah. I was rambling a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I would just maybe want to kind of go back one step backward in a way when thinking about what kind of question is in a way what we need to deal to define what AI is. In a way, this really concerns us, kind of, because kind of we are trying to use different metaphors to describe what AI is. Like it's a tool, it's a machine, it's an organism, it's an alien, it's a vampire. Kind of it's many things. But I would say, in a way, it's a kind of what is becoming more and more, it's an environment, as Silvia says, kind of this is, when you are immersed in an environment, you can't escape an environment, kind of you are positioned in it, kind of, so it's a kind of, how to say, hybrid construct, kind of that you are a kind of must deal with it in some way. And in that sense, I would say, kind of then question about what is AI. It's not so important, but in a way how this environment is shaping our practice, kind of how we are interacting with the environment. I mean, that's the kind of key question, what this technology do, in a way. And so for me, I would just want to ask you how it really kind of influencing your practice, your artistic practice. I mean, kind of, could you imagine at all anymore to work outside of that environment, for example, kind of, is this kind of conceptually possible today at all? I mean, and of course, I mean, I'm asking you as an artist now, but as Silvia said before, that concerns all of us, whatever we do, kind of. But since you are artists, I'm asking this question here and now, yeah. So does anybody wants to take on that? Change the order.
Yeah, I can relate to being stuck in a sense because I've kind of tried to escape, and I think from making quite pessimistic or critical works, I kind of want to sometimes extricate myself from that mindset or that kind of commitment and maybe pursue something that makes me happy for a change. But then I get sucked back into critiquing and digging deeper into this pit. Or maybe I'm not digging, maybe I'm just being buried as well. So, yeah.
You asked whether we can operate outside of it. I mean, for us, it's kind of, in our practice, it's stepping in and stepping out. It became very important to be very aware for us, like when are we working with agents and AI systems, and what are the roles that we assign to them, and when are we just alone with ourselves, or in a museum, or in the cinema, or reading a book. Doing these things that require the prolonged attention, like, seems to really matter in the time we are. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's just a question of mental hygiene at the end of the day, where you kind of need to not let it take over too much, and cultivate a certain sense of self, because it's really easy to get absorbed. Like, because I personally don't filter anything. Like, I be talking with my AIs about everything, and then it's like, wait, maybe I should reflect on that before, vomiting it out. And so to kind of, know your boundaries, I guess, like, between yourself and the thing.
You also asked about, like, doing work kind of about AI, and I mean, it is kind of annoying how everything becomes about AI at some point. But on the other hand, it's like not addressing our current reality would be like, just pretending the world isn't out there, that painting as if it was the 19th century, something like that. So at a certain level, it's unavoidable that we are addressing the environment. Nothing we can do there, I think.
Sometimes I try to put my thoughts in order because, as you were saying, everything is becoming AI. So machine learning was a great invention. AI, I think, for me, mainly is an investment in the past years. And investments tend to involve mainly everything. So what is happening to me is that, for example, as an artist, I got called to talk about the AI because I know that there are funds which that name attached. And I know that a lot of money of that funds is coming from the venture capitalists and the actual big firma that are developing AI itself. Then at the same time, when I work as a creative or creative director for agencies, I've been called for the same reason, like as a person who can write about AI, or when I have been called, for example, as a translator of a book, like now is happening with Trevor Pagan's book, or before with Ito, people are contacting me because they know that I know about AI, but it's a different kind of AI, no? So it's a lot of different AIs together, but the same person and the same buzzword. What I can say is that a lot of people are somehow invested in this investment, but it's difficult to understand what is provoked and what is the pure need of trying to understand what is really happening to us, to our life, to our economy, to our creativity because of this invention. So, I don't know, it's a bit complicated, but it's my impression.
It just brings up, it reminded me of another thing that I think impacts some of the choices I make, and why I kind of get sucked back into this is that I feel like one of the things, we were talking about before about the challenges that sometimes AI can bring to us and whether we choose to accept them as challenges or not. So one of the things I see, for example, I mean, as a teacher as well, that one of the main ways in which we kind of find the things that we like or find the things that we are interested in is through a feed, which can be quite kind of neurally using neural mechanisms can kind of accelerate the amount of content that we see that is relevant for us. And I think that kind of idea of relevance is something that AI has shown me that is an interesting thing to play against. I've taken it upon myself to kind of, as a lecturer, for example, when I talk to my younger students, to not just teach them about the work they're making or want to make, but also just to expose them to maybe surprising things, surprising weird things, or something they might not kind of find as a kind of popular thing. So something irrelevant maybe. And the kind of maybe unusual or unexpected or weird kind of things that come up when something that repulses you or doesn't kind of track with what you kind of believe in already, and kind of tracks and relates to your feed and kind of your algorithm. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just to explore further what just Silvia says about technology, that in a way always reflects certain ideology. I mean, it reflects society in which was developed in a way, and in that sense, this algorithmic trends that Daniela was writing about, it's in a way amplified with AI because we were already in a, to use now this Zach's terminology about the Trinity, we were already living in a Trinity influencers crowd and algorithms, that they're reinforcing each other. And now with AI, this is a further amplified, and in that sense, this is a kind of mediascape, what you mentioned before, and that is definitely something that kind of many people are concerned with it, from not just from deep fakes and the kind of content, but also about the reach, and kind of managing of the, spread of information and so on. So in that sense, I mean, kind of our mediascape kind of is something that is really, in a way, it's more and more shaped by kind of automation processes, in that sense, and with AI, who has, in a way, kind of more and more autonomy in decision-making processes. So, in that sense, how do you see your position kind of as an artist in this kind of new mediascape? How much you think that kind of your message or kind of what you want to communicate kind of what are the means and possibilities to reach the audiences, kind of that's kind of relation, kind of which is basically reception of the art is a kind of important aspect of the art, kind of how kind of this new technology and basically new mediascape or old mediascape that is amplified now, kind of it's kind of shaping your work, as you already mentioned, kind of buzzword AI, and because of that you are invited to do something and so on, kind of, I would just like maybe to explore more on that. Yeah, if anybody wants to take on that, or we can, yeah, please.
No.
I mean, the number one strategy of, I guess, all artists is misusing the tools, right? This is what we all do. But I mean, it's a very interesting question about reaching the audiences, and in a way, it feels like some things don't change, like or they change in quality, but not in nature or in intensity. For example, the principle of spectacle. I mean, Zach's book title, like you don't need to know anything about the book to buy it, like As of God. The title is just so spectacular, and that's not something that's changing with AI. I mean, the nature, like how the spectacle looks, how intense it is, how compressed it has to be into reels, that changes, I guess. But yeah, of course, the misusing the tools places us on this, like, in the loop where, yes, we are playing our role of the artists who will civilize them by critiquing, and then what happens to that critique is probably often, it gets just reabsorbed into the system. So I don't have anything positive to say here. Maybe somebody else.
Maybe I will answer your question by telling the story of how I did the trilogy that is in the other room, because it can be. So, as an artist, 4 years ago, actually, I observed that a lot of my fellow colleagues and were having fun with this new thing. You could create videos with AI, and it was so amazing. It was like seeing your dreams for the first time moving, no? And also very weird, like nightmares. And at the same time, we had the impression that something was changing. Maybe in the future these tools would be better, and maybe we would at last be automatized in some kind of ways without any kind of buzzing income, of course, because when you're not useful, you kind of get thrown away. That now we know. And this was 4 years ago. Also, I was observing that the situation was kind of hilarious, enthusiastically, a lot of change, like a golden era for memes and the internet, a lot of experiments, and everything was kind of related to the creative bubble. Okay, it was not still expanded to the rest of the. And then during the years, I kind of observed a sort of gentrification of the concept AI that we are speaking about. So, for example, what happened is that marketing started to enter, as they usually do when something work in the subcultural landscape, they kind of use it. Of course, in this case, was not just that. It was also that they wanted to use AI as a tool, and when there is something you, as editor of Vogue, one told me, fashion brands especially, when they see something you just jump in because they don't know how to sell anymore, so they need some news. And this happened so later on, and then after that we kind of realized, okay, but who's behind these tools that we are using? And we started, to name names like Sam Altman, Elon Musk, OpenAI, and then Anthropic, Asabib, etc. And also we started to see the bigger picture, and we understood that maybe AI companies exist also because they sign defense contracts, that AI can also be used as a tool in the army, not just for creators, nice and young and beautiful creators. So what I did as an artist in this situation, what I felt was that it could be interesting to actually use the same logic of assembling data sets, stealing actually material or stealing shit posting, which is what OpenAI was doing by creating, for example, ChatGPTs, to tell the story of what was going on and trying to understand what is, this kind of gentrification process or metamorphosis we all kind of had in our minds. So where we were looking at the videos yesterday with Dubi, and he was saying, but this was like a century ago, like 3 years ago. And yeah, it changed a lot, like we changed it. So yeah, documenting was something I do as an artist.
Yeah, I really like the questions mixture of both the mediascape and the audience, because I don't know if I make work for an audience in particular, but I do kind of imagine an audience's capabilities based on their kind of being a subject within this mediascape. And I think I kind of want to exploit something that's maybe inherent in all of us, whether we kind of know it or not, but we're kind of operating in this mediascape through kind of pattern recognition quite a lot. And I think that's something that advertisers and products have kind of used quite a lot. And I think it comes across in the films that I've made or I hope it anyway, because they tend to be very dense, full of kind of a lot of dense scripts and kind of visually very dense as well. And it kind of maybe somewhat inspired, I guess, by I think this was an essay that the philosopher Ray Brassier wrote about 20 years ago on the subject of noise, to suggest that noise is not a lack of meaning, but rather an excess or a surfeit of meaning. So there's quite a lot of kind of different unusual or kind of regional or specific meanings kind of coming up against each other in these works. But I think that doesn't necessarily come across. There's no kind of key to understanding it, but it's rather something that puts people in a position where they can hopefully just pick out different narratives among this kind of density. So I think that's something that where both the audience and the mediascape is kind of itself has really influenced how I approach making something.
Yeah, I mean, that situation reminds me, kind of some 15 years ago, 20 years ago, Asta Taylor, a Canadian filmmaker, she made a kind of interesting statement that putting video on YouTube is not career of filmmaker. That's kind of reminds me, kind of different media, but kind of similar situation. So I would like to invite you to our conversation if you have any comments or question. The audience. Or if not, we can talk by ourselves. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just want to maybe kind of to open the discussion in relation, as you mentioned, who is behind that when you start working and then start to discovering who is behind, what kind of interests is behind, kind of what is the goal of leaving this technology into the world, kind of. And that's a kind of a question of, kind of political and economical and kind of different types of interest that is also kind of raising more and more questions among the people, and also ecological aspect is not something that is, kind of because of huge consumption of the water and electricity, and kind of we are more and more often hear the kind of news about the problems in that sense. Kind of this is something that kind of also kind of in a way it's repeating itself, kind of how internet infrastructure was a big topic in arts maybe 10 years ago, after these metaphors of cloud were presented as a kind of very physical objects, cables and so on, kind of. And I think, kind of we have this similar situation with AI, kind of right now. I want to ask you, do you kind of integrate this perspective, in your work, and how? Yeah.
Okay. So yes, this is actually the base of what I'm doing, and also we are doing with ClusterDuck. We had a similar situation with social media that could really help us, no? Like at a certain time, Facebook appeared. Everyone wanted to know if a person was single or not, or post his diary, whatever. And it sounds exciting. Then we started to talk about, I don't know, Zuckerberg, like the movie Social Network came about, so also at high schools they knew that the guy was a pervert or whatever. But this story, like the story we had, the romance we had with social media, can teach us a lot also, because the people behind that ambient are quite the same, no? So, and also social media are really related to the development of AI, in a sense that in the last 15 years they were gathering data because they wanted to implement the AI that we are using now, and we kind of knew that already. Yeah, one interesting thing is that now that they actually gathered all the data, we will probably assist in a change of paradigm in which we start to see robots and drones everywhere, and they are going to start again to talk about Internet of Things, because now they need to gather a different kind of data, which is the one they have to use for the world models, so in the real life. But this is another story. But what I'm interested right now, like I'm observing, is that between this CEO of AI firma, there are creating some different politics are created. So, for example, you have the one that decided to stay in Silicon Valley, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, of course, and be near the defense contracts, are having a different policy. While you have, for example, last month, As-Sabib, the CEO and founder of Google DeepMind, and Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, they met at Davos, and they were very friendly. Their favorite movie is the same, which is Contact, a movie that talks about aliens. You probably have seen that. And they were lovely between each other, and they were saying something like, AI is dangerous. We would really like to stop, but we can't because of China. This is like to sum this up. And they were looking really pacific, and also in this situation they are, for example, As-Sabib has always wanted to be in London, and all of the people inside the industry knows that this is because then he has a bit more freedom to do his research, and the research inside Google DeepMind instead of signing too much defense contract. And Amodei and Anthropic were actually kind of banned now because they refused to sign a certain agreement with Trump and the US government. And then you have the situation in China with this they don't want to sell the chips, but Taiwan is creating the 90% of the chips, of the semiconductor chips. So what I'm seeing, to be short, sorry for this long monologue, is that there are politics, and not all the AI CEO are the same. As much as not all social media companies were the same, to use the metaphor. For example, Tumblr was better than Meta, let's say. So this is also something we should start, I think, to think about. So I don't know. I don't want to. No, I'm gonna pass the word to you, but then maybe I will.
I guess thinking about infrastructure and politics, maybe I think I was kind of interested in that on quite a personal scale, maybe. So navigating, again, this mediascape and kind of thinking of it in terms of, I don't know if everyone's kind of familiar with the term hostile architecture, but it's something that's very common in a place like London, where it's exemplified in things like homeless spikes, so like objects which stop homeless people from sleeping on flat surfaces, things like that. So this infrastructure kind of was something that I kind of, in the work, kind of speculated might be perceived as being, rather than kind of simply, or not just kind of cables and people and things like that, but also the hallucinations themselves that kind of gain traction and start to kind of develop into things like filter bubbles, or even kind of political movements and things, or widespread beliefs. And again, these kind of hallucinations kind of become the context. And on a personal level, I was wondering about I was kind of interested about the occupation of our dreams, what we do when we sleep, and just I guess this brings it back to kind of Daniela's I guess metaphor for the exhibition of sleepwalking. And yeah, just I've always kind of been interested in this term that some scientists have kind of used, which is the idea of night science. And it's almost just like sleeping on an idea and allowing your kind of brain to try and solve something while you sleep. So it's almost kind of trusting that black box of your brain to kind of process some information, or let you see something from a different perspective, so that when you wake up you can resolve this problem. But what happens in that, I've been quite curious about that black box itself as being something that's looking at kind of different kind of dream psychologists and things, almost like an underworld, and what kind of almost like the pantheon of gods that Zach has developed and shown, which is really amazing. What kind of pantheon of archetypes or ideas become embedded in our own kind of dreamscapes and our dreams and our thoughts as a result of this kind of hostile architecture of combined and uneven hallucinations that we kind of try and navigate. That was kind of my interest in both the politics, but also the personal political level, but also this kind of potential infrastructure that maybe includes things like dreams and things.
Well, I guess I'm also going to talk about the personal angle, but what I've been recently interested about on this like political angle about AI is the duality between the information sickness and the verification crisis and the reality slop it creates, where in a way you could argue that AI is just like a psyop, you know, like it continuously, or like a multitude of psyops where so much reality is being produced where we cannot like catch up on whether it's actually real or not. And at the same time, yeah, it kind of creates this awkward conflict of reality itself, where like, okay, wait, is this actually real? I'm referring about to a lot of the videos coming out of like Iran being AI generated, and like all of these news agencies like not having access to satellite images because they got delayed and everything, and then kind of like having to rely on this footage that, you know, you then again need AI to kind of verify whether it's real or not. And so it kind of like, you know, creates this loop of humans standing in the way of humans doing their job as humans to kind of provide information that is just insane. And yeah, it just creates this kind of, I don't know, like channel, like alternate reality channel where like, yeah, you as a human alone don't have the tools to figure it out yourself. And yeah, that's just fucking scary. Like,
yeah. Okay. Any comments or question? Yeah, please.
I mean, I think this has been super helpful in sort of articulating this array of perspectives. So from Daniela's framing of sort of sleepwalking, we actually see that people aren't sleepwalking. They're actually thinking really carefully about AI, about the political implications, about the infrastructures of AI, and that AI, which is many different things, it's not just generative AI, it's the machine learning that went into making or shaping a lot of the clothes that we're wearing or the supply lines, but that it is still generative in thinking with and about. And I think it reminds me, I saw with Marcin last summer a talk by Kate Crawford that, I think it was from the eFlux piece that she wrote, and it did seem sort of end in this idea of like, well, it's just everything, it's just AI is just eating its own tail. It's just, there's no new there. And for me, I just don't agree with this idea. I think even slop is interesting to think about, right? Like when my students make slop, or my, partner's sister-in-law makes a calendar of her dad's dog. Like as an artist and anthropologist, like there's still something interesting in that, right? It's not just garbage to be thrown out. So, yeah, thank you for everyone on the panel for like these reminders, right? The composting that happens when you're asleep, I think is happening in real time.
Okay. Anybody wants to comment on that? No.
Thank you, because what I was saying to Dan, just joke, we are specialists in garbage. Like there is actually a magazine I really love, it's called Garbage Day by Ryan Broderick, and he's commenting about what's happening on the web since, the beginning of 4chan. But this is his angle to actually talk about what is happening right now to American politics, and this is something that I really appreciate, and I see that actually we are so much embedded in the bullshit that we kind of need to, mold something out of it. And this is maybe the good definition, at least of my practice. I don't know if it's something that is also that you can resonate with.
I think I remember what it was you said in your comment that I wanted to respond to, and it was just the kind of the contested nature of, I guess, of AI being something that could generate thinking. And it can, like I mentioned before, you can take things as a challenge if you choose to kind of exercise agency to do so and try and respond to that challenge somehow. But also, I think it also rather pessimistically speculate that it generates the opposite of thinking. I think that there's maybe quite a habitual tendency, maybe among the neural mediascape, in a way that is positive for being visible on the mediascape, to rather, I've said this before in relation to a previous artwork, but to think and act like a scraper. And that is to compare the kind of evolving cognitive capacities of our brains and our actions and our habits of visibility to that of a kind of very simple algorithm called a web scraper, which is kind of part of many things. I mean, it can be part of a kind of administrator's job, but it's also part of one of many parts of like these AI systems that scrape data. And they do so by very, very kind of quite simply, I guess, being programmed to perceive particular things. And that kind of reminds me of maybe some of some of the habits that happens in discourse, kind of contemporary discourse, maybe a contemporary discourse industrial complex, where one of the kind of statements I hear is something like, "Oh, that tracks with what I think, that tracks with what I believe in, or what I've heard already." And it kind of reminds me that when you hear something that tracks, it's very different from being persuaded by an argument. So there's much less actual agency happening there. You're just perceiving things that are being kind of quite, I mean, it sounds quite conspiratorial, kind of being programmed to believe in, but then this is something that kind of goes back to Walter Benjamin and Susan Buck Morris in the 90s, when she kind of read Walter Benjamin's work as, in her word, was kind of not considering an aesthetics of the urban environment, but rather an anesthetics. So kind of being numb to the things outside of your perspective that, say, you disagree with or can surprise you. Again and coming back to things, why I'm so interested in being surprised or repulsed by something. I find it completely suspicious to indulge in something that is designed to be liked. A lot of kind of online communities, I think, are exactly that, and I think they can be a trap or a warren to titillate the desire to go down a rabbit hole, but that rabbit hole can just be an endless cycle of contributing data, perhaps. Again, very pessimistic and speculative, but sorry, that's me. It's the world's fault, not mine.
I mean, again, we're going into the generational thing, but I tend to be suspicious, or I try to be suspicious of these narratives where we're describing our generation as getting dumber, or AI as making all of us dumber. In classroom situations, I hope there's a lot of cultural misunderstanding that you can ascribe, like certain situations to misunderstanding in different like communication cultures and all that. I mean, this. Like thinking again, as you suggested, in these like cycles and wider time frames, like we heard this argument about some kind of technology making us collectively worse many times before, and to also relate to what Shaka said, like Kate Crawford talking about the slob eating itself, it seems like she tends to forget about the human part of it and the human users who will make the dog posters, dog calendars, and always find something interesting to do. So, and something new and something that doesn't get old immediately. So that's.
I have a question. So, like, because. I actually tend to agree with Kate Crawford, so I was just wondering, it's not that we are also being part of the same, cycle? Like, it's always my doubt. Like, from a center point of view, I love any kind of meme and dogs and human production in the cycle of what we used to call like internet culture. It was not slop, it was, something really interesting. And I have the impression that this cycle kind of went backward, and now we are talking about slop, putting it on the same level of what was actually our human creations. And but what I like generationally, I've seen a time in which we didn't have the slop online and we were creating it, but it wasn't called slop, it was spam, shit posting, whatever. What? Or content. Yeah, content was something like, okay, if we're talking names, maybe content was something that is, I see it as related to the meta culture in a way, so, but too complicated. But what I wanted to say here is that, for example, my nephew, she's now 10 years old. I'm wondering maybe what she's going to think is gonna be like the opposite, no? It's like what you were saying to me is exactly the opposite of what I see, because you are seeing it from a different perspective, which is this AI was created with shitposting and is shitposting now, and so my shitposting should be compared to the shitposting of the AI, while I tend, to traditionally defend the nobility of the old shitposting. And it's just funny to me. It's not actually a critique. It's just, I'm kind of seeing, that, wow, okay.
I mean, we're still here. The human-made artworks are in the exhibition, and we have an audience that is willing to listen to us ramble about this. So I'm not so pessimistic. I think thinking finds a way, No,
in relation to what you're saying about like shitposting, because I mean, I'm also, I tend to be nostalgic about like Tumblr days, but I do think that slop tends to get like unified, and we tend to talk about slop in this like flat kind of way, where it's just like this one big turd, this aggregate of shit, whereas actually, in my opinion, there's like subcategories of that, because you have the automated slop, which is like, arguably there's like maybe one human behind it who set up the entire system of like creating this like automation machine that like, maybe like even an artificial influencer that then just fucking shit posts, which is, in my opinion, arguably way worse than somebody, putting the thought behind prompting a script for Fruit Love Island or like Italian brain rot memes, because I feel like this type of content still kind of sits on this like very like humanly mimetic type of funny content. Yeah, I guess just like my remark is that, yeah, there is slop that I really enjoy watching. And I don't think that should get put on the same pedestal, in the same bin as, yeah.
No, sorry. No. I thought you were giving the mic. Yeah, that made me think, and especially also what you're saying about anthropological kind of appreciation of slop as well. I mean, like, I'm a long-time fan of artists like John Waters and stuff who are like synonymous with trash, and I kind of spend a lot of time in my local London grindhouse cinema watching trash, which is often kind of just misunderstood art from a long time ago, or art was kind of made without a coherent framework, maybe, that kind of didn't fit in with the time or something. And I just wonder if maybe there's a difference between things like trash or kitsch and slop. And I don't know what those differences are, but maybe there's a kind of interesting kind of terminology kind of exercise to do there to kind of differentiate those things. And maybe actually differentiation is the key. I've spoken about the feed already, and the kind of there's things like midification, and there's a kind of line in The Bastard Fields where I talk about this de-differentiation being a feature and not a bug of artificial intelligence. I mean, even the kind of agentic AI, I think, I'm not a technical person when it comes to these things, like you guys. I'm not a developer. But as far as I can see, I can still see the same process happening within the models that kind of require judgment on data that kind of tracks with what the model perceives as being the kind of median statistically viable projection of that reality that it's trying to put forward. So I think maybe that is something that helps to differentiate what we're talking about in terms of like slop and trash. I wonder if slop is just kind of the kind of ever converging but never quite reaching zero, or never quite reaching the kind of middle kind of statistical thing. It's just kind of always approaching the most middle of the road thing there is. And again, I appreciate a lot of slop videos. I appreciate a lot of really dumb stuff. And that impacts me, and maybe, again, this comes down to kind of the evolution of what we... I mean, memes is an interesting thing to bring in, because, again, memes have kind of helped to solidify communities, and even if it's not a kind of discrete community, but an imagined community. So, like, memes is kind of a dog whistle for politics, or just even kind of having an in-joke that's appreciated by people around the world. So some people kind of get it, I guess the whole if you know, you know thing. And maybe trash is more about not knowing, not getting it. So it's a diatribe on trash, sorry. No one asked for that.
Yeah, you can talk about the trash, that's for sure. I mean, and yeah, thank you for this unexpected turn. Thank you for your comment. And so maybe we can, kind of finish this talk. And I would like to thank you all for coming in Rijeka and sharing your work with us. And also, once again, I would like to thank to Daniela for curating and helping us to setting up this. And of course, thank you, audience, for your patience to being us. And that's it, folks.